Thank you for joining us today. My name is Elisa Guardiola, Budget Management Director. This morning, I will provide an overview of the Commonwealth fiscal outlook and share the work underway between the government and the Oversight Board as we continue developing the fiscal year 27 budget. We will begin with a look at Puerto Rico's historical and current fiscal condition and the progress made throughout years of sustained fiscal discipline. That discipline has allowed government spending to remain steady while still supporting targeted investments in key areas. We will also review the economic headwinds and declining revenue expectations that shape this year's budget development process. From there, I will provide an overview of the fiscal year 27 Commonwealth budget, including responsible investments in the Budget Stabilization Fund and the Capital Fund, and how these tools strengthen our ability to plan for long-term needs. Finally, we will discuss how this budget reflects a co-lead process between the government and the Oversight Board, a process that continues to implement important budget reforms and advance Puerto Rico's transition to strategic institutional budgeting. With that context, let's move into the executive summary. Puerto Rico has made historic progress in restoring fiscal discipline. For the first time in decades, budgets have remained balanced under PROMESA, supported by more transparent and responsible budgeting practices. At the same time, revenue trends have softened. That means we must continue planning carefully and avoid returning to unsustainable budgeting approaches. The Oversight Board and the government are together transitioning from crisis budgeting to a more institutional and strategic budgeting model, anchored in long-term planning, clear fiscal controls, and transparent priorities. Strengthening cash management and building reserves will be essential to ensuring stability over time. With that context, let's look at where Puerto Rico started before the reforms of recent years. Before PROMESA, Puerto Rico experienced 16 consecutive years in which spending exceeded recurrent revenues. Pension obligations were not fully funded, and public debt had reached unsustainable levels. PROMESA established the Oversight Board to restore fiscal balance and transparency. Since then, the Oversight Board and the government have strengthened controls, improved reporting, and implemented more disciplined financial practices. These changes have helped stabilize the Commonwealth finances and move Puerto Rico away from the structural deficits of the past. This foundation is important, especially as we now face flattening revenues. General fund revenues through November 2025 are lower than the previous 2 years and among the lowest since 2022. This is not a sign of crisis, but it is a clear signal that the fiscal year 27 budget must be built on a realistic and conservative assumptions. The weakening trends also reflect broader economic conditions as federal stimulus wind down. Economists have noted slower momentum, and this reinforces the need for cautious planning and responsible budgeting. Understanding the historical, current, and future fiscal conditions of the Commonwealth helps policymakers identify the major drivers of the fiscal challenges Puerto Rico faces moving forward. Before PROMESA, the Commonwealth was on an unsustainable path. The government's budget did not fully account for all obligations. This included understating expenditures related to debt payments, pension-related costs, and several other expenses that were not reflected transparently in the budget. Today, these obligations are fully incorporated into the general fund certified budget. This provides a clearer and more accurate picture of Puerto Rico's true fiscal position. Through sustained fiscal discipline, the Oversight Board has held government spending steady, allowing the government to invest responsibly in critical areas such as health, education, and essential government operations. Since fiscal year 2017, Puerto Rico's general fund operating budget has grown by just over 1% per year on average, far below typical US state budget growth. This restraint reflects the combined effort of the government and the Oversight Board to maintain spending discipline, strengthen controls, and ensure transparency. This discipline foundation is essential as we plan for future fiscal challenges and continue transitioning from crisis-driven budgeting to strategic institutional budgeting. As we turn to fiscal year 27, the discipline continues to guide our work. The fiscal year 27 budget targets remain largely flat compared to fiscal year 26, reflecting downward revenue trends. This reflects the current revenue outlook and the need to remain conservative. The targets remove one-time items from fiscal year 26, continue essential commitments under the plan of adjustment, and maintain temporary measures only where needed to manage operating risks responsibly. This protects the Commonwealth from overextending during a period of economic uncertainty. The Treasury single account often appears to hold significant cash. However, much of this balance is restricted, tied to statutory appropriations, prior year commitments, or obligations under the plan of adjustment. The true amount available for general operations is far smaller than the headline figure. This is why strengthening the Budget Stabilization Fund and the Capital Fund is important. These reserves enhance transparency, clarify what funds are actually available, and help ensure the Commonwealth is prepared for shifting economic conditions, natural disasters, and long-term infrastructure needs. The Oversight Board and the government are closely monitoring several fiscal risks as we plan for the fiscal year 27 and beyond. Revenue risks include variability in tax collections and higher than expected earned income tax credit claims. Operational risks involve pressures on key agencies and statutory obligations that may require additional funding. Federal funding risks, especially related to Medicaid, remain significant given Puerto Rico's reliance on federal support. Energy-related risks tied to PREPA and workforce-related liabilities also require careful attention. Recognizing these risks is essential to maintaining credible, resilient financial planning. Every U.S. state and territory maintains reserves to manage downturns, disasters, and unexpected fiscal shocks. Puerto Rico must do the same. Reserves are a core component of responsible budgeting. They demonstrate preparedness, build confidence among rating agencies and investors, and protect essential services during economic uncertainty. The work to rebuild these reserves is a necessary part of strengthening Puerto Rico's fiscal future. Institutionalizing the Budget Stabilization Fund and the Capital Fund is central to improving long-term planning. The Stabilization Fund creates a buffer during downturns and enhances transparency around available operating cash. The Capital Fund provides a dedicated source for infrastructure investment and separates long-term capital needs from the day-to-day operating budget, a best practice widely used across the U.S. states. Together, these funds strengthen Puerto Rico resilience and align our budgeting practices with national standards and expectations. 4 major reforms support this year's budget process. Budget reform legislation to modernize Puerto Rico budgeting framework and codify improved timelines and structures. centralized financial planning supported by the ERP system, and strengthen OMB capabilities to provide better data and more coordinated financial oversight. Establishment of reserves fund supported by operationalization of budget stabilization reserve and capital fund, and modified accrual accounting, which will begin implementation with the fiscal year 27 general fund budget, a required step under PROMESA and essential for long-term fiscal stability. These reforms are critical to Puerto Rico's transition from crisis to strategic budgeting. We are currently in the detailed phase for the fiscal year 27 budget, and we're quickly moving to the governor's submission review and legislative engagement. The government will formally present the proposed budget to the Oversight Board in early March. From there, the Oversight Board will continue its review, engage with the legislature, and work towards certification by June 30th, consistent with PROMESA requirements. Throughout this process, the government and the Oversight Board remain aligned on the importance of responsible, strategic, and transparent budgeting. Puerto Rico has made meaningful progress driven by collaborative work of the government and the Oversight Board to restore fiscal stability and prepare for a more resilient future. Sustaining this progress demands continued discipline, clear planning, and long-term thinking. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to continue working together.